Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us. Rolling out on a Friday. Why are all these poker players supporting Yang? They're calling it the Yang Gang. Well, we'll get to that. It certainly has something to do with poker, does it not, JD?
What?
Forget it. We'll move on. You're on your phone. Thank you for paying attention.
What, the Yang Gang?
Thank you for paying attention to the show.
I think Yang is great. I think he's got a lot of modern ideas. I like the fact that he comes in on segways and shows up at events. But yeah, Daniel Negreanu. So what happened was this guy Noah Sandler reached out to Andrew Yang. He actually he took him aside after a press conference and talked about online poker. Andrew Yang was so driven by it. We're talking about presidential candidate from the Democratic side, Andrew Yang, that he reached out to Daniel Negreanu, and it's just kind of started this whole thing. And so Noah Sandler is the reason why that happened, and he'll be on the show at 11:30.
Yeah, so he'll be coming up here in just a little bit. We're also covering this O.J. Simpson story we'll get to here just a little bit. This is crazy because I remember this story came out as John Schaefer, our news anchor here, talked to us a little bit about this story. This happened a couple years ago where O.J. Simpson was kicked out of the Cosmo. They claimed that he was belligerent. They claimed that he was drunk. Well, now O.J. just filed a lawsuit yesterday in court claiming that the employees of the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas defamed him when they told TMZ he was kicked out of the hotel for being belligerent. This was back in November 2017. Can you imagine the backlash that a judge would get, or if it went to court, went to trial, that jurors would get if they awarded OJ like $1 million or $5 million or $500,000 or anything? Can you imagine the backlash on that? But apparently OJ was kicked out. And I know that he likes to hang out at these wine bars, right? What is that wine bar in Summerlin that he always hangs out at? Do you know what I'm talking about? I know you're on your phone. I'm sorry to distract you. Do you know the place where OJ goes to? And I keep forgetting the name of this place.
First of all, I don't want to get sued for telling our listeners where you can find O.J. Simpson.
You're not going to get sued.
Okay, well, he hangs out at Grape Street.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll like the free publicity.
Yeah. Out in Summerlin, out in that outdoor mall.
Too bad he's not hanging out in the Clark County Detention Center.
And he is there constantly. I'll tell you what, that place has great food, too, and a nice little atmosphere to watch football games. So I'm a fan of Grape Street.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable. This guy's kicking back, smoking cigars, drinking wine,
playing
golf every day.
Malcolm Laverne said, and I quote, "OJ is living his best life," and that's exactly what he's doing. He is living his best life.
Wait, do that impersonation again?
I'm not doing it again.
That was the impersonation of OJ's attorney.
I could do better.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is O.J. Simpson in his own words. He just put out another Twitter video. It just came out about 20 minutes ago or so. So this is fresh O.J. Simpson coming off of the golf course in Las Vegas. Here he is.
Hey, Twitter world, is yours truly. Well, last night I had a couple of guys running on the Thursday night football. Terrell Williams, receiver for the Raiders, didn't do that well, but Josh Jacobs, you the man.
Yours truly.
When I drafted you in the fourth round of our fantasy draft, the guys were snickering at me. Well, who's laughing now?
Ooh,
You're
who's
great,
laughing
buddy, and
now?
I can't wait to see you live here in Las Vegas next year. Couple of big, intriguing games this weekend. We got the real tough Minnesota Vikings going against what I call the bipolar Cowboys.
Yeah, speaking of bipolar, you nut job.
And all that offensive talent.
Nobody's more bipolar than you double murderer.
I think they're going to
piece
the Super
of garbage.
Bowl.
I
next
think
week
that's
is
a good way to get him on the show, Brian.
The other game,
I like your
my
approach.
Buffalo Bills going against Cleveland. Buffalo, these are the games you got to win.
I can't take this anymore. Bipolar. If there's anybody's bipolar, one day he's a double murderer, the next day he's giving out fantasy football picks. Yours truly, sorry. Oh.
Tell you what, I'm going to take Cleveland.
Anyway.
I'm going to take Cleveland again for the 6th week in a row, and they're just going to keep kicking me in my know what.
Well, that's your fault then. All right, joining us on the show right now, it's his fault because he joins us every week. He does a great job over there. Speaking of TMZ at TMZ Sports, that would be the man himself, Mike Babcock. Mike, thanks so much for coming on, my man. How you doing?
What's up, Mikey?
What's up, fellas? How are you?
Doing great.
So what is it, a day in the life of Mike Babcock? What do you got going? We should ask you this every week. What do you got going on in L.A. this weekend? You're a happening guy.
I have a buddy of mine, my best friend that I grew up with, coming into town this weekend, and his girlfriend's going to a wedding in Santa Barbara. I don't know why he's not going to the wedding with her, but he's going to be in town, so I'm going to go see him for dinner tonight and hopefully do some fun stuff with him this weekend. But my life is a lot duller than you'd expect now. I'm getting a little old. I'm 36 now. Yeah, I forget my own age.
Oh, stop
36
it.
years old. So
That's a good age, Mikey.
There are.
Yeah, it's good. Especially in LA, guys, you see so many old people, so many old guys out at the clubs in LA. It's actually funny.
I believe that.
It's unlike what you see around, in other places around the country. It's funny.
Well, you've got a lot of older guys that want to believe that they're younger, despite the fact that they look in the mirror and their bodies are clearly leaving them. They want that feeling that they can still get those younger girls.
You shouldn't talk about our president like that, JD. That's very inappropriate. So Mike, a lot of controversy in the NBA, and we've been talking about this story a lot. Where obviously the whole Kawhi Leonard story, and you're right there in LA, so you know this story better than anybody. Yep. And now you guys put up a story that Doc Rivers was fined. First of all, can you tell me exactly what Doc Rivers said about this? And can you give us just a little bit of background on this Kawhi Leonard rule, this NBA rule?
Right. So it's a little confusing. So the NBA put in a rule 2 years ago that said that when a game is nationally televised, a star player cannot just sit out for a load management reason. If there's an injury, of course he can sit out. So there's a whole process that the NBA has where if somebody has an injury, you have to show the NBA medical documentation, and then the NBA would, determine, this is a valid injury or it's not a valid injury. So Kawhi Leonard has this knee issue, and the NBA said, we agree, Kawhi is hurt, so he can sit out nationally televised games. And he did do that. He sat out 2 ESPN games back-to-back weeks. So he missed 2 nationally televised games, which obviously hurts ratings. That's not what ESPN wants. They want, the big superstar Kawhi Leonard to play when their games are on TV. So everything was fine until Doc Rivers, after the game, talking to the media, he says he essentially contradicts, says that Kawhi is fine, is healthy, doesn't have an injury. In fact, he said he never felt better. So there was a contradiction there. Now, the NBA, they fined the Clippers $50,000. And it's not the kind of what people are losing here. It's not that the NBA is saying that Kawhi isn't hurt. They believe Kawhi actually is hurt. They are just mad, upset with Doc for telling the media that Kawhi was not hurt. So it's a little bit confusing, but it all boils down to the fact that the NBA doesn't want healthy players sitting out for no reason because it hurts TV ratings, and it also upsets fans. I mean, people buy expensive NBA tickets to see Kawhi Leonard and NBA superstars play, not sit, wearing a suit on the bench. So a little bit of a strange situation with Kawhi Leonard and Doc Rivers.
So I'm a little confused here. Doc Rivers knows his players better than anybody. Why on earth would Doc say he's not hurt if he is? I find that to be suspicious.
So I've talked to some people that are around the team, and what I gather is that Kawhi is a very private person and would rather his medical stuff not be out there.
I believe that.
The kind of the rub of the thing that makes it hard is that the medical information has to be out there in order for him to not be breaking this rule.
Right.
You have to tell people that he is hurt. Otherwise, there's no way to sit down for these nationally televised games. So what I gather from what I've heard is that Doc was kind of trying to give some cover for Kawhi, and he wasn't going to put his business out there. So when he was asked about Kawhi's injury, I don't know that he knew he was going to get fined $50,000. Maybe if he knew that, he would have handled it differently. But I think at its core, Doc knows that Kawhi has a little knee thing going right now, but he just wasn't going to publicly talk about a very private guy's health.
Well, and $50,000 to Kawhi is a big deal considering he drove a '97 Ford Explorer for about 23 years. That's 3 of those, isn't that? But you know
what? Well, the thing is, Steve Ballmer is going to pay the fine, and $50,000 to Steve Ballmer is nothing.
Like $5.
That's very true. So do you have an issue with this, Mikey? Because I look at Kevin Durant, when he comes back and plays for the Nets, he's going to need at least 7 or 8 of these games now. I mean, of these front load games, isn't he? I mean, if you've had a prior injury, I have no issue with this new rule. And honest to God, it's keeping the players happy, and it's keeping the super teams intact, and it's keeping the players where they want to be for an extended amount of years. I think it's actually good for the NBA and for the fan bases and their teams.
Yeah, I think this is the best possible thing they could come up with. You have old school guys. Michael Jordan just said yesterday that you're getting paid to play 82 games, so I expect you to play 82 games. But the reality is that, and look, the Raptors, they sat Kawhi how many times last year? They sat him a lot, and they won the championship. He was
exactly.
You're keeping
your
they won the title. So, I mean, you can't argue with the results. I mean, I think just the bottom line is that the NBA season is rigorous. Back-to-back games especially are rigorous. It's tough on these guys' bodies. But at the same time, you have to balance that with when you have a game that's going to be played in front of the whole country on ESPN or on TNT, we have to try to find a way for the big stars to play in those games. And I think you have to try to limit, guys sitting out, because NBA tickets are really expensive, and it's upsetting if it's a dad somewhere who buys a ticket for him and his son to go watch Kawhi Leonard play, and then when they get to the stadium, the arena, they find out Kawhi's not playing. I mean, that sucks. So there's a balance. There's a give and take.
There's definitely a fine line.
I think this rule is actually the best that could be done.
And let's be honest, Michael Jordan played against three guys that would not have a chance in the NBA right now. Brian Russell, Bob Sura, Jeff Hornacek. Those guys would never even sniff the league right now. The level of competition is much higher. Yeah,
right.
so
I'm with you. Different game right now.
Exactly. Much better athletes across the board. MJ was the class, so he was the class of the league back then, but now you've got a lot of athletes that are comparable to him. So Conor McGregor is not the father of a 2-year-old love child DNA test shows. Can you talk about that?
Yep, he's not the father. It's like a Maury episode. There was a 2-year-old child, and there was a woman who said that Conor McGregor was the father, and this was a love child as a result of a relationship that Conor had outside of a long-term relationship with Dee Devlin. But they had the paternity test done, and he is not the father. So, another sticky situation here that Conor escaped from.
He gets in a lot of those, doesn't he? So I'm looking at this Warriors team. They had Durant, they had Curry, they had Draymond Green, they had Klay Thompson, and within 9 months, it's probably the worst team in the NBA. I've never seen a transformation like that in 9 months. And I think Eric Pascal's got a chance to win the Rookie of the Year, and I recommend, if you're a wagering guy, to bet on him there. But have you ever seen a fall from grace like this before, Mikey?
Well, Caitlyn Jenner had quite the transformation. Sorry, go ahead.
I would argue a bigger transformation. Yeah. No, it's been stunning. It's a combination of, one, how dominant they were for the last 4 or 5 years, coupled with the fact that you have the guy and Kevin Durant, who is probably the second best player at worst in the league, leaves, and then some devastating injuries, and I think that's why we have what is it's crazy to look at. Sometimes I still forget. I still think that they're the Warriors, and then I'll see a score, and it's shocking to see how bad they are now. But I don't think it's over for them. I think a lot of people have said it's over for them, and it's clearly over for them this year. I think with Steph, had he not gotten hurt, I think they maybe had a chance to sneak in, with the 8th spot in the West. But I think next year, assuming that Klay and Steph are healthy, I don't know if they're going to win a championship again, but I think they'll be right there. I think, Klay, I love Klay. I think Klay is one of the best players in the league. He might be the best shooter. Just defensively, he's so good.
He's so good defensively, right?
And, so with Draymond and Steph, I think that's a pretty damn good nucleus. So I think obviously be a down year for them this year, but I think next year they'll be right back.
And the news came out that Steph's finger injury is actually worse than they thought. He'll be out for the year. I think the Warriors have a chance to draft LaMelo Ball in the top 2 next year.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see certainly how that goes. Okay, TMZ's Mike Babcock joining us on the line. So FSU just paid Willie Taggart around $18 million not to coach the team after starting 9-12. That's a lot of money to lose your job. And now we're learning that Deion Sanders is being backed by LeBron James. You guys put a story up on TMZ about this. Tell me about it.
Yeah, look, Deion has said, I think it was while Dan Reeves was still coaching the Falcons, that Deion said he wanted to coach. So he said for some time now that he has wanted to get into coaching. There's been some buzz that Deion could be considered for the FSU head coaching job. LeBron James, who we know is from Ohio, but he's a Dallas Cowboys fan, so maybe he has a little bit of a connection there to Deion Sanders. But he has endorsed Deion Sanders for what that is worth to get the FSU job. But personally, I think it's a bad idea. I don't understand why in the world Deion would ever want to do this, why a guy who is rich and famous would want to commit the time and the energy that it takes to run a college football program. I don't know why he would want to have to go into the living rooms and the kitchens of kids and kiss up to kids and their parents and try to get guys to commit to FSU. I just don't understand why an all-time great would want to put himself in this situation.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do it.
Also, right, you know what I'm also thinking, guys? You also then have this touchy situation. If it doesn't go well and FSU is forced to fire Deion Sanders, now you've just fired the guy who was arguably the best player that you've ever had.
Right.
That adds another dimension to it. Also, I just don't understand why Deion would want to do it. If all these rumors are,
I don't think he's going to.
Well,
Yeah,
he could have spent a lot of money. He's got 4 or 5 kids. He's going to recruit unbelievably well. He's a smart guy. He's going to know how to play good defense, especially from the defensive back or the defensive back position. I think at this point anything is better than Willie Taggart.
I would agree with that. Hey, Mike, did you say you were going to a wedding this weekend? Is that what you said?
No, I said my buddy's girlfriend is going to. No wedding for me this weekend.
All right. Well,
no
tell your buddy if he sees any single women out there at the wedding that there are some single 39-year-old bald white Jews that do radio shows that would be interested. So just spread the word, okay?
I'll send them your way.
Mr. Babcock, always love it when you come on, my man.
You
always
have no shame, Brian.
I have no shame at all. All right, Mike. Have a good.
I got you, Brian. We're going to find you somebody.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. All right. Have a great weekend, my friend. We'll catch you next week, okay? All right, there you go. TMZ Sports' very own Mike Babcock. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'll explain why TMZ was not able to talk about this O.J. Simpson story. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Take.